Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Let's see who we have on tonight. We have CGM. Thank you for moderating, CGM. Great to see you. Stefan is here. We also have Akismad, Mark, Stu King, President. Great to see you. We also have Shell. Great to have you on. Chatty Rat is here. Killer, thank you for moderating once again. That's Fancy Sock. Okay. We have Woods Boy Hunter. Great to see you again on the stream. Jay is here, Archibus is here, Wolfpet, great to see you. Claire Sweet, great to have you on again, Claire. Mark is here. We also have Frederick, great to see you. Maria, we have also Alistair, great to see you, Alistair. Hope you're well tonight. We have Raven 1983 Witch, great to see you. Doc Davis is here. Killer, sorry, I said hello to Killer. Freckle Punny, great to see you. Hope you're well tonight. And President Stu, thank you so much for that super chat. Hi Max, hope you're well. Thanks for what you do. Thank you, very, very kind of you for those hugs. I have a bit of a technical problem here I'm trying to resolve. Can't seem to resolve it. Okay, I have a problem with my chat. Okay, we'll leave that. So I hope everyone is very well. I can see it on another screen. So let's jump into the first issue tonight. We'll talk about a few things. Talk about Brexit. Talk about the ICC, the prosecutor from the ICC, immigration, and boot camps. Yes, the Tories want to introduce some sort of boot camps to get people back to work. Well, let's start off with the first one. So I don't know if you can see on your screen. So, of course, what's Labour going to take over from the Tories? Well, it seems they're going to take over an absolute mess. It says here, Politics UK says, Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, Sue Gray, remember Sue Gray, has compiled a shit list of crises a Labour government would face. Potential collapse of Thames Water, public sector pay pressure, prison overcrowding, universities going under, NHS funding, and bankrupt councils. So, wait a minute. Oh my goodness, I have to keep things in separate screens. Apologies for that. Okay. So let's look at the first one. So potential collapse of Thames Water. So Labour have said that they would not nationalise the water companies. So they would instead try to hold them to a higher standard. They would issue fines. They would attempt to imprison people who were involved in not doing their job when it comes to the waters, when it comes to pumping raw sewage and effluent into rivers and lakes. I think they should actually go down the Welsh road or the Scottish road where it comes to the method that they use in Scotland and Wales. For example, in Wales, they're non-profit, so they're privately owned, but highly regulated, but they're non-profit, so they're not driven by shareholder dividends. And in Scotland, it's publicly owned, so there is no profit motive there. So you need to go in a direction like that instead of allowing these for-profit organizations to run up massive amounts of debt and rely on the taxpayer to invest in the infrastructure. You know, they have made massive profits over the last 20, 30 years since privatization, 40 years, I think it's almost. They've made a massive amount of profits, and all of that money has gone to the dividends, to their shareholders, and not to to rebuilding the infrastructure, Victorian infrastructure. So this is going to be a disaster that Labour is going to have to take on, and they'll have to deal with it. Public sector pay pressure. So with the cost of living crisis, and Labour have said that they don't want to see strikes taking place. So they said, you know, one of the problems with the Conservatives is that there have been there's been a lot of strikes going on in, for example, in the NHS or in transport. So Labour have said that they would end that. So they would, and in order to deal with that, in order to end strikes or not to avoid strikes, they would have better paying conditions for public sector workers. So this is going to be something as well. But if the public sector workers demand extra pay, a higher pay, and Rachel Reeves has said that she's going to be very strict with the purse strings, that's going to be you're going to have different departments lobbying for their sectors in order to maintain maintain some sort of calm and to avoid strike action. But you're going to have Rachel Reeves, who will be the next Chancellor, pushing back on that, no doubt. Prison overcrowding. So the Tories have not built enough prisons over the last number of years, the last 14 years, and they have allowed prisons to become highly overcrowded, way overcrowded. In some cases, cells for one person have 2 or 3 people in them. And the Tory response has been, well, we'll just let people out early, including violent criminals, which is extremely worrying. So what needs to happen is the prisons that exist need to be upgraded. There needs to be a review of why certain people are in prison. Maybe non-violent criminals can be released, and you need to build more prisons. But of course, building prisons is not popular with the public. Universities going under. So what the Tories, of course, have been doing when it comes to universities is trying to limit their access to external funding. Let me read the chat as well. Won't be an issue. I understand what you're saying. But universities need access to external funding, because if they don't, then they have to increase fees for British students. And if they increase fees too much, then they're going to lose British students. So people will decide not to go to university. So universities need to rely on foreign students. But the Tories have, of course, been trying to crack down on foreigners coming in, be them asylum seekers or economic migrants or students or whatever. So by implementing these measures, they have made it more difficult for universities to stay afloat. So what Labour will have to do is roll back a lot of these Tory policies, allow universities to bring in more foreign students to allow them to remain operational. NHS funding is, of course, I think should be number one here in this list of problems for Keir Starmer from day one. NHS funding has been deeply insufficient over the last 14 years. That by design, the Tories have not just forgotten to invest in the NHS. They have decided to make a political decision not to invest sufficient funding into the NHS, and of course to rely more on the private sector. So what the Labour Party need to do, a Labour government need to wean the NHS off the private sector and at the same time increase funding. But once again, we get back to the point where Rachel Reeves, who will be the Chancellor, may say, no, we're not going down that road. We're not going to increase funding. We're going to limit funding to public services. Now, what she should be doing, I think, is increasing taxation on the richest in society, maybe considering borrowing. There's also the possibility that certain state assets could be sold off. I don't think that's a good idea, but if there's anything left that the Tories haven't already sold off. But they need to raise finance. And what needs to happen is, as we know, the richest in society who've had it really good over the last number of years, they have to start paying their fair share. They have to shoulder the burden. But Labour can't talk about this now, because if they do, then they're going to piss off their donors. Bankrupt councils. Of course, councils are going under, and councils provide essential services to the public, especially, for example, social care. So if councils are struggling, they're going to have to rely more on central government. And when central government are providing funding, a lot of services that people require are cut straight away. So services will be provided, but it will be very limited in the number, and it would be just essential services. So you're going to start to see libraries close, you're going to see bin collections less often, you're going to see facilities for young people close down because councils can't afford that to maintain them open. And if central government doesn't increase funding for councils or give them more powers so they can increase funding themselves, then you're going to see more councils going bankrupt. And look at this list here. Collapse of Thames Water, public sector pay, prison overcrowding, universities going under, NHS funding, bankrupt councils. All of these are going to be attack lines by the Conservatives. The Conservatives are going to say, oh, you're not doing it. Look, why are you giving money to these private water companies? Why are you giving in when it comes to private sector pay and overcrowd? These are all going to be attack lines the Conservatives have lined up ready to use against a future Labour government. And it'll be interesting to see how the media go along with this as well. Let me read some of your comments in the chat, because for some reason my chat is not working. I have to open another page. Tax the rich, yes. Privatization on a large scale is destructive, says Woodsboy. Well said, yeah. Sell more rockets. Sell Big Ben off. Turn it into, I don't know, a tower block. David McGuinness, great to see you on the stream tonight. Oh, so for some reason, the super chat. Okay, now I can see the super chats. For some reason, I didn't see them before. So we have a super chat from Brad. Thank you so much, Brad. Water companies have a problem with parasites, and their water supply is full of pathogens as well. Yes, unfortunately, thanks so much for that super chat. Yes, this is a massive problem because what we're seeing is instead of upgrading the facilities, the money is going to the parasites, the shareholders, instead of reinvesting that money in the infrastructure, improving the quality of water. You have these private companies who just don't give a damn, don't give a shit. No pun intended, or pun intended, whatever way you want to see it. But these are companies that are profit driven. They don't care about reinvesting, and they know that the Tories and the government in general will bail them out whenever they have a problem. Look, we can't afford to upgrade the infrastructure. Then the government will step in and give them, what was it, 1.5 billion recently? That's what the Tories had on the table to help the water companies who are making massive profits to upgrade the system that the water companies said they would upgrade if the government went down the road of privatization. So privatization has been an absolute disaster. Alistair, thank you so much for that super chat. Scorched earth policy from the Tories will make Labour only in government for one term. Keep up with the excellent informative equality content, Max. Thank you very much, Alistair. Very kind of you. Yeah, if Labour, and I've said this before, if Labour are not able to achieve something in the first Parliament, they really do risk losing out. And what we'll probably see happen is challenges from the left. So you'll see the Green Party, you'll see some other small organisations, a bit like UKIP. Doesn't have to be a big party, doesn't have to have a huge platform. In the media. All it needs to do is attack Labour going forward in a number of seats. And when by-elections come up, especially if Labour win a massive majority, there are of course going to be some dodgy individuals who'll be up to no good, and they'll end up being sacked or having to resign. And then we'll see by-elections, and then we'll start to see how strong Labour's position is in Parliament. And if they start to lose a number of by-elections, then they're going to have to move in the direction of dealing with those concerns, in the same way as the Conservatives have been pandering to Reform UK. Now, what's interesting this week is that a poll came out where Reform UK is losing support, and the Conservatives are not picking up that support. So where Reform are dropping by 3 or 4%, the Conservatives are not picking up that 3 or 4%, which means that people... So Jacob Rees-Mogg and others have always presented this idea that, well, if we can just get Reform to stay at home, if we can do a deal with Nigel Farage, then we can get all these people to come back to the Conservative Party. But there's no evidence to support that. Call for a general election yesterday. The country needs a change. Yes. Well said. David McGuinness, thank you so much for that super chat, David. David says, Max, Reeves is Osborne 2.0, more austerity, anyone. And what she's doing, it seems, is following the Tory line of we need to maintain those spending rules. So she doesn't seem to be interested in increasing taxation on the richest in society. And that's really worrying, because you need to increase taxation on the richest in order to fund public services. Otherwise, the alternative, as David McGuinness has pointed out, is austerity, more austerity. And we saw that austerity doesn't work. Austerity creates more poverty, drives more people into the arms of loan sharks because they can't rely on public services, drives more and more people to food banks. It's been an absolute disaster. In order to grow the economy, you need investment. In order to achieve investment, you need to invest as well. Max, more than £400 billion in tax is given back to taxpayers in HMRC's rebates every year. We have the money. Just close the loopholes and reduce the rebates. Yes, Derek. 400 billion. How many hospitals could that build? How many schools could that build? How many teachers, nurses, doctors could be retained with that? Is Sir Ron Vinti defecting? Yes, I think so. He's holding his cards close to his chest, but it looks like he's likely going in the direction of Reform UK. Surprise, surprise, and no surprise at all. We have a super chat from, let me see here. Akismad, thank you so much, Akismad. Heard it was lovely in Mullingar today, Max. Mullingar? I don't know. I'm confused. Thanks so much, Akismad. Not sure. They want 30 on HQ here. Okay, so let's move on. There's I just want to show also this interview with a guy who's a pure Tory. Have a listen to what he has to say. It was a very strange interview on Politics Live today. Let me increase the volume a little bit.
I think for too long we have not built enough houses. I think that is something of the 21st century, quite frankly. I look across my constituents, I see large estates built throughout the 70s and the 80s, and I wonder to myself, how was that done? I remember the adverts with the Barrett's Wimpy helicopter going across talking about new estates. None of these things have been happening. Now, I've had lots
But these are Conservative governments.
But I've had lots of developments take place in my constituency which I haven't opposed, and I've tried to find positive ways forward. I think it was a mistake of the government when it changed hands to get rid of the housing targets that came in. I think anybody who doesn't feel that we need more housing is quite frankly wrong. How it is going
Alex,
to
can
be
you talk
delivered?
to Michael Gove about
well,
it?
I mean, I do. I just. But
I don't think he's the villain in all this, though, I have to say.
How it's going to be delivered is the question.
So how do how do you deliver it then?
Well, I mean, the problem always comes up with, I mean, for example, there's an area nearby where my current constituency, which was a plan to build 4,000 houses. But two of the landowners have pulled out of that. There's huge local opposition to it. And I very much doubt it will get built. And the question is, I mean, personally, I think that house building targets were important. There's been so many things done.
You disagree with Rishi Sunak dropping it, or certainly the sanction if you didn't.
I always did disagree.
I don't understand. This guy says the 21st century is the problem here. We used to build houses, tower blocks, public housing, council housing in the 1970s, and for some reason we stopped. It's your party that was responsible for Right to Buy. And then what happened with Right to Buy, which Right to Buy isn't itself a problem. The problem is that the housing stock was not replenished. So people bought their council houses, the money went to the councils, but the councils were not allowed to build new council houses. That was part of the agreement under Margaret Thatcher. And this guy said, well, how come that we have so few houses? Yes, because your party was against the idea of building more affordable housing. Because Margaret Thatcher, for ideological reasons, said, let's just allow the market to decide. Let's allow the private sector to build the houses and to provide housing for people, because we don't like councils doing it. Ange, great to see you on the stream, and thanks for that comment. How many pounds is being withheld by HMRC to business on the new VAT scheme? That would be interesting to see. An absolute disaster. My mum is in Milgave. I think some people are writing these names because they're trying to get me to mispronounce. Very naughty. Milgai, start of the West Highland Way. Okay, Milgai. Thank you for giving me the pronunciation. They write these words here, these names of places, and they know that I can't pronounce them. It's very naughty. David McGuinness, thank you so much for that super chat. Labour are recruiting Tory MPs, says stretching. This is going to be interesting. And well, we saw with the defection of, thanks for that, David. And you're right. We saw with the defection of, what's her name? Natalie Elphicke, how she's going to get a job in a Labour administration. So she's going to be in charge of some, regarding housing, some issues. Sorry, she's going to be dealing with housing. So I think we're going to see others defect, or maybe before the election, maybe after the election. After the election, you're going to see a few Tories who will say, yeah, I'm jumping ship because I want a job after I lose my seat. Max Enge said it was also lovely in Achenshagle. Achenshagle is, did I say it right? Achenshagle. Achenshagle Rock. I heard it's Aki's birthday. Give him a how dare you, Sir Larry? You know, you're just getting me to sing. You just want me to sing. Thanks, Aki's Pat. We have Gareth. Thank you so much, Gareth. Build houses, communism, Marxism, cardboard box. That's it. That's the way to go. See, building houses for people is communism. We don't deal in those types of things. Let the private sector decide. So this channel wouldn't be this channel if it wasn't about Brexit, if Brexit didn't get a mention. Well, of course, Brexit got a bit of a mention this week. New EU border IT system risks long delays, says Cameron. David Cameron. David Cameron has told MPs he is really worried that the EU's new border IT system will lead to long delays when it's implemented. The entry-exit system, EES, delayed until at least October, will require visitors to register fingerprints, a photo and passport details to enter the EU. Lord Cameron, the Foreign Secretary, said the system still needs testing and improving before it's rolled out. There have been a number of warnings for more than a year that the extra time registration will take some time. Will cause some very long queues. Speaking at the European Scrutiny Committee, Lord Cameron said, "I think it's clear to me that the technology still needs testing and improving. I think we've made some progress, but I think there are a few big choke points at Dover and St Pancras, and I'm really worried about the long delays for people." The much delayed EU-run EES will replace manual passport stamping. Under the new system, French border police check passports as people leave the UK at the port of Dover, Eurostar St Pancras terminus, and Eurostar in Folkestone. Citizens of countries which are outside the bloc, including the UK, will need to register their biometric information. In January, the Port of Dover, alongside ferry firms DFDS, Irish Ferries and P&O Ferries, called for the delay in the scheme's rollout. Yes, because what happens is you need to arrive, you need to check your date. So the first time is the problem. After that, there isn't really an issue. So you have to register all of these things the first time, and then every time after you use the system, you just fly through if there aren't any problems. But the first time, of course, is going to be a problem because you need to spend a significant amount of time doing this. Now, if the UK had remained in the European Union, then this wouldn't really be a problem. But it is a problem because the UK is outside the European Union. I will never register for anything that wants my biometrics. It's 1984 crap. Maria, thank you so much, Maria. Very kind of you. Bali Labad is Smagoruki. Okay. Sounds like a currency. So as we go forward, Brexit is not going to get any better. Brexit is obviously just going to get worse and worse. Moving on. Anyway, what do the Conservatives want to do? Well, okay, so there are a number of issues to talk about here. First of all, immigration and also unemployment. And of course, what we're going to see after this is about boot camps. So the Conservatives want to introduce boot camps. Well, let's hear what they had to say on Good Morning Britain about unemployment first.
You can't just turn up and get free money.
Are unemployed in this country?
It's about 1.4, 1.5 million.
We've got 1.5 million. There are plenty of people, and I'm sorry, not all of them are sick and on.
Andrew, if you have an elderly relative, do you really want them cared for by somebody who has been forced, kicking and screaming, into that job? Or do you want somebody who came from abroad with skills in care
What, you assume they're going to be okay?
Do it?
What, you assume the migrant is going to be better than the person forced kicking and screaming?
What?
My goodness. This guy, his Twitter profile is called, or Twitter handle is called Tory Boy. So that's all you really need to know about him. But so he thinks, oh, well, a migrant who comes to Britain in order to work in the care sector is the same, or maybe worse in his eyes, than somebody who's British who's been forced into doing this job because they risk losing their benefits.
Well, yeah, if they want to do the job. I definitely want somebody who wants to do the job.
Why are we paying benefits to all these people who are swinging the lead?
Biggest single group of migrants.
All of these, this is the default position, that everyone who's on benefits, or the majority of people on benefits, are swinging the lead, as he says, lazy. They're just gaming the system. They don't want to work. Like, I've said before, why can't the DWP be there to help people who want to work? Some people may not want to work. Okay, but what's the point in punishing everyone for a small minority? This is what these Tories want to do. They want to punish the vast majority of people for a very, very small minority. And look, that small minority, what is the point in punishing everyone for them? Well, we need to punish everyone because of a small minority. Well, we could apply that to politics as well. Well, should all MPs be punished because a few bad eggs exist? Should they all have their salaries cut? Should they all be investigated because of a few bad eggs? I don't think they'd be too happy with that. Should we investigate this guy and his tax returns and everything like this because of what others have said or done? Don't think he'd be too happy with that. Well, when it comes to people on benefits, it's the last resort for the Conservatives. They have this hatred of people who are on benefits, the poorest in society as well. This hatred of them, that the goal is to punish, not to help. Sounds like a place in Scotland. David, thank you so much for that super chat. It's not a problem, Max. The English people love a good queue. Biometrics, not a problem. There was a Brexiteer saying we invented the queue, so they should be quite happy with that. Thank you so much, Larry. I see in the chat. He's getting it's the challenge not accepted. Alice, thank you so much for that super chat. The Conservatives, aka the forced Labour Party. Yes. I want to put that on a t-shirt. That deserves to be made into a t-shirt. The Conservatives, also known as the forced Labour Party. Well said. Thanks for that. Happy birthday, Aki's Mad. Free beer in Shackle Hall Street. Very, very mean people tonight. Thanks for that. Yoni, great to see you on the stream, and thanks for that super chat. Denial of work and pensions. Exactly, denial of work and pensions. That's the DWP. I describe them as a criminal organization. They don't care about people. It's about forcing people into situations where they know that they, like friend of the channel has explained on a number of occasions how, I'm not going to say his name, but he knows who if he's on tonight, but he explained how he went to the job center, and they were like, okay, yeah, you can hardly walk, but let's try and find a job for you. Let's force you into doing a job. Yeah, but I can hardly walk. It doesn't matter. We have a target to achieve. Anyway.
I work as a carers.
Yeah.
Undergoing into the health system. I'm afraid it
goodness for them.
collapsed.
I agree. We don't pay carers enough, but there's enough people. We do not need another vast influx of people coming in. Schools, no room in schools, not enough houses, the benefit system.
I'm just not sure what a care system is going to be like as a coerced care system, employment system.
I'm sorry, I don't think you can assume, we'll get some migrants in to do it. They're going to do a great job.
They are doing a great job, but we're going to make it harder for them to do that job and tell them that they need to go home.
We should make people here who are not working get off their backsides and do more work.
What do we think is the fun?
It's always about punishing people. It's not actually about doing something right. It's not about helping people. Arctic Bear, thank you so much for that super chat. Thank you so much for that support. See that flash car the CEO drives? If you knuckle down and work long hours, you'll be able to buy him a new one. Yes, that was a good point. It's time to get rid of Rishi. Yes, there needs to be a general election. It needs to happen. It needs to happen a long time ago. Guys, we're about halfway through the stream, so we'll just take a short comedy moment, and we'll be back in just a jiffy with more serious stuff. Hope you enjoy this.
Nick, thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
As you know, us here at Fliss International take the welfare of our staff very seriously, because we're legally obliged to.
Right.
So how are you, buddy? Anything we can do to help you?
Well, fewer hours. I'm really tired.
Grow some balls. I mean, let me take a look at that for you. Your request for a change of hours has been denied. It could set a precedent. Other staff could ask me to do things that actually involve doing paperwork. Could you imagine? Is there anything else we can help you with?
Proper breaks?
Nick, you get a very generous 15-minute lunch hour. Us here at Fliss International are in line with other exploitative companies on this. You know what I'm getting, Nick? You don't like your job. Why don't you like your job, Nick? What's wrong with your job? You're on a great 25k package.
Well, it's 22k.
Yeah, right, but you got time to build a career. I mean, how old are you? 20...
I'm 43.
You're 43? That's 10 years older than me, and I'm on 60k.
What? I'm just anxious all the time, you know?
I don't think you are. But then I skipped the training to recognise poor mental health. Didn't need to do it. I only manage a team of 15. No, but it does say on this form here that we do take your mental health very seriously, which is why that woman comes in once every 18 months to put hot stones on your back. You like that, don't you, champ? Hey, the hot stones on your back? You love it. Cheers you right up.
Get off.
Yeah, no, it does say here we are legally obliged to consider flexible working.
Oh, well, that'd be a start.
Just considering it. I've considered it, and I consider it to be a bad idea. Could you imagine if everyone did it? It'd be chaos. And who would be physically here for me to sexually harass?
Look, I'm just so tired. I don't see my family, and when I do, I'm snapping at them. I don't know what day it is. I can't pay the mortgage this month because you don't pay me enough. I got these horrible pains in my bowels. You don't allow me time to go and see the GP. So I'm just stuck, you know? I don't know what to do.
Nick, Man up. Yeah? Right, I need you to sign this form to say that you're happy. Right, so do you not disagree that you're not unhappy? Okay, good. Just need you to sign this. On here. Right, that's a welfare check done. And an hour ahead of schedule. Half day for me. See ya.
Wonderful. Oh, it's so true, isn't it? So let's move on. Infected blood inquiry. Ken Clarke should be stripped of peerage, says victims. Ken Clarke has been heavily criticised in a report by Sir Brian Landshaft, chair of the 77-year inquiry into the scandal that killed more than 3,000 and infected more than 30,000 Britons with HIV and hepatitis C with infected blood products between the 1970s and the early 1990s. The politician was health minister in Margaret Thatcher's government from 1982 to 1985, then health secretary from 1988 to 1990, before becoming home secretary and chancellor under John Major. He described the infections in 1985 as an unavoidable adverse effects which can unhappily arise from many medical procedures, which is a terrible thing to say. So Brian said that there was evidence in 1982 that infections were happening through imported blood products, meaning Lord Clarke's claims gave false assurances, lacked candour, and were misleading. Victims have now said Lord Clarke should no longer be allowed to continue sitting in the House of Lords. He was handed a peerage in 2020 by Boris Johnson. And look, considering what has happened, considering his approach to this as a health minister, I agree with this. He should be stripped of his title. Now, it's important that even though he loses the peerage, it's important that he's not the only one. It's important that he doesn't become a scapegoat. And I have a fear that that's what it will become. Look, let's get rid of Ken. Let's blame Ken Clarke for all of this, so he will protect others. Dave McGuinness, thanks so much for that super chat. There is a reason for national security cut national insurance pay for the NHS. For the national security cut, national insurance pay for the NHS and pensions. Yeah, so the Tories are happy to see national insurance cut because it deprives the NHS and pensions of the money they need. Just allow people to go privately when it comes to the NHS, or force people to rely on private pensions instead of using public money. They want to shovel more money to their friends in the private sector. Sarah, thank you so much for that super. Sarah S, great to see you on the stream. Thank you very much for that support. Enjoy. Very kind of you. The whole load. There's a whole load of responsibility, including Labour ministers. Yes, so it went on for a long period of time. Ken Clarke scapegoat, like Michelle Moan for PPE. When they scapegoat their own, what's the chance for the rest of us? Yes, I know. Very well said, Bill Silver. It is it's extremely worrying, because while there will be compensation for the victims and the families of the victims, how many other situations like this went on? Infected blood victims could get £2 million compensation. Ministers said that the figures set out the figures as they unveiled the proposed scheme following publication of the inquiry's report into the scandal on Monday. They said authorities covered up the scandal and exposed victims to unacceptable risks. The government said that the first payments will be made by the end of the year. In the meantime, it said an extra interim payments of £210,000 over the summer those will be the 4,000 victims who've already received payments of 100,000. So the criteria for receiving a payment is injury and harm caused, social impact from stigma and isolation, impact on autonomy and private life, such as not being able to have children, care costs, financial loss. Of course, the money helps, but it's not going to undo the damage that was done. And that's why it's so important that somebody faces responsibility for this. That the Tories, or not just the Tories, politicians in general, and people in Whitehall just don't get away with this. And that there aren't scapegoats created. So let's move on to another story here, guys, as time is against us. Skills boot camps to be offered, as Minister says UK has relied on foreign workers for too long. So in a speech on Tuesday, Work and Pension Secretary Mel Stride will promise job training for sectors experiencing shortages such as social care, hospitality and construction, saying the UK has relied on foreign workers for too long and he is determined to put that right. It's, once again, this idea that, okay, many sectors are struggling to find the staff they need. So instead of actually allowing them to access the staff they need, what we're going to do is we're going to create boot camps. We're going to train up our own people to do these jobs. Okay, but sometimes the jobs are not in the place where the people need the jobs. Sometimes people don't have the skills, and training them up will take time and it will take money. But the Tories don't want to spend money in, for example, for ordinary people. So what's the goal here? I think it's just another gimmick. The last time when the statistics were published, the figure hit a record high of 745,000. The announcement will come as fresh net migration statistics due to be published on Thursday, showing how many people came and left the UK in 2023. The last time the statistics were published, the figure hit a record high of 745,000 in 2022, leading to a backlash by MPs on the right of the Conservative Party who want to see the number lowered. For what reason? Why is this number a problem? If there are vacancies, then people will come. Why is this so difficult for people to understand? If there are vacancies, then there will be a natural balance in the immigration numbers. If there are no jobs, then people will not come. If there are jobs, then people will come, especially people from poorer countries where they can improve their quality of life. So you can imagine, I'm in my home country. There are no jobs. I hear there are jobs in the United Kingdom. They have following Brexit, they have a lot of shortages, vacancies. There's an opportunity there for me to improve my lot. The wages are maybe not very high, but they're better than where I am now. So people will go there. Now, if there are no jobs available, then people won't come. This is why I don't understand why even the Labour Party are going with we need to reduce immigration. We sort of understand it from the Conservatives and the right in the Conservative Party, because it comes down to racism and xenophobia. But for other parties, particularly the Labour Party, I don't understand why they are not going with this, is saying, look, let's allow the immigration numbers to adjust themselves. This has been pointed out by people who are experts. They say, look, if there are jobs available, people will come. And there are jobs available because of Brexit, because we sent so many people home as a result of ending freedom of movement. The government have announced a raft of new measures to try and curb legal migration, including stopping students from bringing their dependents, which results in stopping students, and then universities end up with having less cash available, and increasing the salary somebody has to earn to qualify for a visa, which of course makes it dramatically more difficult for businesses to hire staff. Because if you need to recruit staff who are only above 37,000, I think it is, it was 28, I think it's maybe 30-something thousand, how many jobs are available where you receive a salary of over 30,000 a year? Not that many. So the Conservatives say, okay, if you want to bring people in, they have to earn a minimum of that. But most of the jobs that are desperately needed to be filled are in hospitality, and very few jobs in hospitality pay over 30,000 a year. But some of the cabinet have raised concerns about the impact on UK university coffers as well as the workforce, and certain businesses unable to get the staff they need. In his speech, Mr. Stride will say he understands cutting the numbers will present a recruitment challenge, to put it mildly, but he believes that the government can build a new economic model based on British talent. These are the Tories talking, saying, yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to invest in training and recruitment of British people. All of a sudden, where is this money coming from? How are you going to afford it? How are you going to pay for it? I wish that was a question put to Mel Stride. He will confirm a new cross-government ministerial task force has been set up to develop recruitment initiatives, task forces, to get people into work, similar to the efforts made in 2021 to recruit more HGV drivers. Remember, they made the HGV driving license easier because you didn't have to learn how to reverse. And the move will come with an added benefit of cutting the benefits bill. So we're going to force, I said this before, I said this a number of years ago. I said what they're going to do is they're going to force people on benefits into jobs. And if people refuse to do those jobs, they're going to lose their benefits. And when people are in... So how is this going to benefit certain businesses? Well, in certain businesses, you'll have staff on the books who are not able to quit, who are not able to demand better paying conditions, not able to demand any better pay, because you're going to have people who are having their benefits linked to the job. So if they complain and they lose their job, they're going to lose their benefits. So people will be forced into a type of slavery. You have to do this job. If you don't do it, you're going to lose your benefits. If you're doing this job and you complain or create problems, you're going to lose your benefits. And of course, as was pointed out in the other report, you're going to have people who should not be anywhere near a care sector being forced into doing care work. Like, I would love to sit down with some of these Tory MPs and Tory ministers and ask them, would you be happy with your parent or grandparent being looked after by somebody who was forced into doing that job? Would you be happy with that? Of course they wouldn't. No reasonable person would be happy to see that. He went on to say, so my message to business is clear. Our job centre teams stand ready to help you find the right candidate, and we want to work with you to overcome recruitment challenges. Like, do you honestly think that this has just happened? That businesses are like, oh, thankfully the government are doing something now. Like, isn't that the job of the DWP anyway? The job centre is supposed to help businesses find the staff they need and to help people get into jobs. Like, what have they been doing for the last 14 years? Gareth, thank you so much for that super chat. Because we need migrant workers when you can pursue a campaign of collective punishment against amputees, grandmas and psychiatric patients. Well said, Gareth. Yeah, who needs when you can just force people who are disabled or sick or struggling into doing these jobs? Freckle Bunny, thank you so much for that super chat as well. Boot camps for the unemployed lead to corrupt welfare to work firms such as A4E, which made millions via fraud. I know, and I know, as I saw such fraud for myself. Thanks for that, Freckle Bunny. Yeah, there's going to be a huge amount of fraud involved here. You're going to have companies set up just to take on staff and not actually have them do any work, and then, of course, claim for that. And then because the government services are so cut back, it's going to be very difficult to police this type of behavior. Why not just create a system where people who want to find jobs are supported, people who don't are left alone? What's the point in forcing people who don't want to work? It's a very small minority, okay, but they do exist. But what's the point in forcing these people into doing jobs that they don't want to do? But also, worse than that, forcing people who can't do a job into a job just to tick a box, just to reach a target. We were offered 72 hours free labour of hopeful interviewees by DWP. How disgusting is that? 72 hours of free labour. And how are people supposed to improve their chances in life in a situation like that. Instead of actually providing real jobs for people. No, what we'll do is we'll create a sort of an extra tier of jobs. Desperate rhetoric from a dying political party comprised of sadists, yes. The EU funded a large amount of training and career advice. It was not replaced when we left the EU. Well said, Ernie. Yes. Because that would be... And, for example, there are a number of... and there still exist a number of schemes in Europe. For example, in Italy, there are a lot of English language training courses, business training courses, security training, safety training, a lot of courses. And businesses take advantage of this because it's money from the EU, but it allows their staff to be trained up and allows people to access training courses that help their career prospects. But that's not the goal of the DWP. The DWP's goal is just to punish people, to force people into jobs that they know they can't do. Yeah, who the fuck uses agency staff with 72 hours at zero cost? That's ripe for abuse. And as I said before, if people were to complain, if workers complain, then they risk losing their benefits. That was for HGV drivers who kind of fucking reverse. Yes. Training is tax deductible, Max. Well said. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. None of these people in the DWP know nothing about healthcare. No, and this is another issue where you'll have people who have no medical training or very basic medical training making decisions for people, on the fly, in a one-to-one meeting or interview. It's disgraceful, and it's ripe for abuse, and it's going to create massive problems. Now, I just want to let your blood boil, because my blood is boiling when it comes to these things. Here is Ben Kantesh speaking to somebody about this.
I wanted to be a commercial pilot, Ben. I'm now 43 with 2 daughters and a wife. The reality is, unless I retrain to be, electrician, I'm never going to be a commercial pilot.
There is a difference here, isn't there? How much university debt did you rack up with your degree at De Montfort?
Well, I had a few. We're not talking 60, 70k.
That's it, isn't it?
I had £15,000 worth of debt.
If you study for 3 years and you end up leaving with 70 grand debt,
I understand that.
Then the Work and Pensions Minister says, "Yeah, that degree wasn't worthwhile. We don't want you doing those jobs. There aren't any of them. Why don't you go and work in construction?" You're going to turn around and feel pretty let down.
I hate this stereotype of Brits, but we do look down our nose at certain professions and careers. If we've got the adults, the youth, our younger generation, seeing the adults whinging and whining about what they can't do or what they're being asked to do, then they're just going to follow that track. And I think sometimes you have to accept that you need to train to do something that you're not comfortable with, and maybe it'll work out. But stop
training to do something you're not comfortable with. Okay, people have been told for many years, you need to go to university. If you go to university, you're going to be able to get a degree in whatever, and that's going to help you with your career prospects. People have been told this for years. Now they've been told, actually, you shouldn't have done that. Yes, but now now that I've done it, I have a massive amount of debt. The government keep moving the goalposts. They say, on one hand, well, people should be going to university because it increases their chance of getting a highly paid job, and you need to go to university if you want a highly paid job in order to get by, to buy a house or to afford to get a mortgage or even just to survive in general. You need to have a minimum level of experience or qualification. But then now they're saying, well, you actually don't want that. Instead of actually looking at these things, taking a step back and realizing, okay, what do we need in our society? We need electricians, we need plumbers, we need doctors, we need nurses, we need this, that, and the other. And providing the training and funding for the training and qualifications for those. Instead, it's, well, let's just take a hands-off approach to this and then complain about it after. Where do these people come from? Where are these people? I bashed Gillian Keegan about this in the 25-35 age bracket, and we grew up under Tory austerity with huge university fees. We are at least likely to vote Tory in any age bracket. That's the reason why. I have a long memory. I recall Drunken Smith saying some young woman who wanted to be a geologist shouldn't turn down the job in a supermarket. Arrogant sack of shit. Yes, Ian Duncan Smith. Would he do it? That was a wonderful... Remember, who was it that was asked? Jess Phillips asked... Yeah, Robert Jenrick. I did a clip on it. She asked Robert Jenrick, would you work in the care sector? He couldn't answer the question. Because he knows that the pay and conditions are absolutely crap. But he's happy to see the pay and conditions absolutely crap. Is someone who can't affect change shouting into the wind? Yeah, really don't understand self-determination. The difference between Scotland and some of England is we're a welcoming nation. It's not nationalism party. It's the National Party. You never voted for the SNP once. Finance the study of need skills. The rest will pay for tuition. Yes. Yeah, the bad independent. Okay. There's another clip from LBC I wanted to share with you on the same topic generally with Ben Kentish. I say Ken Bentish. Ben Kentish.
I don't know where to start with the stupidity of his comments. I would like personally for him to come with me on a boot camp for caring. And I would like him, boot camp style, to train someone to look after a person with a double incontinence. Mm-hmm. This is caring is something you have to do that you want to do. You cannot be forced to do
it's
it.
A vocation.
Well said. You can't force people into these jobs. You can't say, okay, we need X number of carers. What we're going to do is take X number of people who are unemployed and make them do these jobs. You need to want to do these jobs. If you don't, you're going to end up with people who don't want to be doing these jobs. And then what's going to happen is they're not going to be capable. They don't have the skills, the life skills to do these jobs. And you're going to see abuse. Once again, you have people who don't want to do jobs being forced into doing these jobs. It's a recipe for disaster. Like, how can Mel Stride probably has elderly parents, or relatives at least. How can he be sure that, this is a good part? This could impact him as well. It could impact his children in the future. And he's happy with that. Is it he doesn't understand? I don't believe it's the case that he doesn't understand. He just doesn't give a shit.
Isn't it?
Exactly. And he's talking about boot camp for people with mental health problems. Yeah. You know, you would put someone like that to care for a person who is totally helpless.
Or it might not even be someone with mental health problems. It might be someone who worked in, I don't know, say recruitment, to take the example we were just talking about. Brilliant at recruitment, 2 weeks training, 3 weeks training, and they're suddenly caring for someone who, as you say, is doubly incontinent, very vulnerable. I wouldn't want any elderly members of my family cared for by that person, let's be honest.
This is my point. The other point is, speaking about foreign workers, British companies go to these countries. You open any newspaper in these countries that the workers are here working. There are so many advertisements, companies asking people to come to England to work.
But that's because they can't get the staff here, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's what they're having to do. It's not that they're choosing to.
Exactly. Why can't they get the staff here? Because people are not properly paid. People are ill and they can't be looked after.
Yep.
If this is sorted out here, there will be no reason for companies to go and get people from other countries.
Well, it's not just that, but it's also the NHS. If the NHS waiting list is so long, you're going to have more and more people who are off sick. If people are off sick, they're being told, you need to be off sick, you need to get off sick pay, you need to get back into the workplace, and you need to do these types of jobs. And this, as we know, is a recipe for a disaster. Ironically, Stride is too fat for actual boot camp. I'm not in the business of fat shaming or attacking people's appearance, but in a sense, like he's happy to see people suffer. Thanks, Brad, for that. He's happy to see people suffer. He knows that he wouldn't be able to do these jobs. He wouldn't be able to work in the care sector, not just from the mental point of view, but the physical point of view, lifting people out of beds. This has done massive amount of damage to people's health themselves if they don't have the right training. It's very difficult work, physically and mentally. And it's frustrating to hear government ministers say, well, we just force people into doing these jobs. What's the worst that can happen? Thanks so much, Brad. It's get Brexiteers to work social care and in farming. No, I understand the point you're making there, Kevin. I appreciate it. But I think forcing Brexiteers to do any sort of thing could be a recipe for disaster. Look at what David Davis achieved as a Brexiteer when he went to negotiate with the European Union. So forcing Brexiteers to do stuff may not work out so well. I understand the point you're trying to make. You're making here. Sorry, and I appreciate it. Put Brexiteers in positions where they can't do much harm. That's probably the best way to go. Stride ain't seen a pie that he didn't eat. Okay. One final story I wanted to cover here. Well, yeah, because we're almost at the end of the stream.
It's possible.
Is about China. Now, China, it says here, so there are areas that we, the US, feel are over-dependent on China for critical supplies, and it's our intention to develop a more resilient supply chain. So as China becomes a more and more powerful nation, a superpower, and we have become more and more reliant on China, it seems that both Europe and the US is pushing back and realizing, maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all, to outsource so much manufacturing to China. There's an attempt to bring it back in-house. And what the US has been doing recently is imposing tariffs on Chinese imports. The US, the country that believes in free trade, well, it doesn't believe so much in free trade when it comes to China, for example.
They will take some steps in response to the tariffs that we've put in place. But going to the larger point about our relationship spans many topics. It involves frank discussion and ongoing communications, both about things we agree about and places where we can work together to accomplish positive things for ourselves and the global economy, and also having frank discussions about areas where we disagree. So when I say our relationship is in a better place, I do think that our communications have deepened. We've had frank and candid discussions, and we have established working groups on the economy and financial issues and markets that have really deepened our relationship. And we're working together on things like debt and climate issues and issues relating to financial stability that are important. But we do believe, and let me say at the outset, I've emphasized that while we have issues with respect to economic matters, we have a broad and deep trade and investment relationship that we think is valuable, is positive for the United States, is positive for China, and we very much want to preserve. So we do think that the playing field should be level, and I've been frank that there are areas where we feel we're over-dependent on China for critical supplies, and it is our intention to develop a more resilient supply chain.
This is the consequence of capitalism. So, for a long time, businesses in the US and in Europe decided it'd actually be much cheaper for us to outsource our manufacturing to China. And now that China has developed its own manufacturing and has surpassed us in certain technologies, then it seems to be the case that the US and Europe are saying, oh, actually, we need to go in the opposite direction. We need to be more protectionist. We need to use, we need to follow the Chinese model of where you have a state intervention, where you have the state running most of the businesses in China. I think it's a little bit too late at this stage, because we don't have the manufacturing. It's very difficult to rebuild the manufacturing after selling it all, not sending it all away. So I think it's going to be a massive struggle going ahead. Guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on. Thank you so much for your support, your super chats, and thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job tonight. Let me read some more of your comments before we finish. I see Longford is mentioned. How can you apply tariffs and or sanctions on countries that you have voluntarily become dependent on for manufacturing and goods? Yeah, that's a very valid point, Shell. Like, you know, it's a bit ironic saying what we're going to do is now impose sanctions on these other countries, the ones that we have become reliant on. Whose fault is that then? Yes. We also outsourced our emissions to China, and we're now blaming China for climate change. Yes. So when it comes to the emissions, the manufacturing is not. It seems to be where the emissions are counted and not. The emissions are outsourced, as was said by Shell, to China. Saying China is the problem. It's not. It's where the products are made, not where they're actually consumed, is the problem. America is going to ban China plates and make people use paper plates. Well said, Peter. That will deal. You know, remember the freedom fries back in, what was it, 2003, 2004? The George W. Bush response to France not going along with Britain as well in the Iraq war. Well, they're going to rename French fries to freedom fries. That was a bit cringy. That was probably the beginning of the sort of cringe. Or maybe it happened before that. So, guys, I want to say thank you, and thanks so much, Peter, there at the end. Thank you so much to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job, as always. And make sure to check out the show on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. Before we go, we have our One for the Road. Hope you will enjoy this.
Well, good evening. Okay, everybody, we are live. Now, let's make sure this camera angle remains on Rishi's back. We want to keep that mic pack in shot the entire time. The problem is if you get his face and his eyes in the shot, people are going to know that he's lying, so just stay on the back. Yeah, we're moving, it's nice, we're moving, we're staying on the back. That's great, because he might get stabbed in the back. We got to keep an eye on that back. Make sure we get those 2 empty seats in. Yeah, I think they were reviewers, but I'm not sure if they're going to make it. The briefing was for Rishi never to look in the camera. We want to keep him as far away from the lens as possible, and we want to just keep sweeping around the room for no reason. Who put the jug of water there? Because that's genius. People talking a lot about how there's sewage in the water. That's clean water. This is great stuff. Keep that water in shot. Because this has never happened before, this is unprecedented. We want to do it in a way that's unprecedented. People are going to be like, wow, I have never seen news footage covered like that. If we stay behind him this whole time, no one's going to make one of those horrible little fake interview videos that people seem to do nowadays. Yeah, the ones they copy from Rosie Holt. Okay, now, cut to a normal shot. There you go, cut away. Show them what we can do, show them we understand how to compose a shot, then disappear. Whoever kept his mic pack on show, you're promoted. This is going to make us seem like a serious news channel the way we've shot this. I think in this particular case, the production value is directly proportionate to the quality of the content. Cut to him from the front again, just for a second. And move away, let's get away from that. In fact, the way this is shot, I think people will find it hard to believe that this has news in the title. Well, I cannot wait to put that footage in my show reel. Rishi's back, which is, ironically, the opposite of what's going to happen this year.
Wonderful. Have a great week, guys. I'll see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. Take care and good night.